Hey, how's it going, my friends? So let's just continue. And honestly, thanks for all the support for the Reveal the Way video and all the other videos you guys are supporting. And yeah, let's just go on with the essay because I think it's long. And anyway, guys, so I'm just gonna read it. Remember, be sure to watch all the sequence. This is Kenneth Minogue, and this is politics, the romance, the real meaning behind patriotism. So last week we read about the Greeks. Today is the Romans. So Romulus was the founder of Rome. Romans saw him as their father, and their focus was on loving their country. So that's one big distinction right there. Greeks didn't see uh, like their founder as their father, and Romans have this concept of family and the state as part of their family. Horan's motto, Dulce et decorum est pro patria mori, translate to it's sweet and fitting to die for one's country. So Romans promoted this idea that the country was the family, and they had to fight wars or get in wars and die for their family if needed to. Because I think they were into wars, but not as much as the Germanic tribe, which we'll talk about it once I do some of that German stuff. So World War One changed this motto to helpless people at the mercy of ruthless politicians. So we'll know the whole assassination of the Franz Ferdinand the Duke by the Serbian Gabrielo Princip, and then it created World War One, and it was a huge war between the Triple Entente and then the I think it's a Triple Alliance, or the because I don't think they were calling themselves Axis back in the day, but it was the Austro-Hungarian Empire, Germany, the Ottoman Empire against Triple Entente, Britain, France. I think the U.S. was helping, Belgium was on the side of the Allies. And there's a book by Edith Wharton, which I really want to read, and I'll probably read it as well. She's Dutch American, but it was writing about it. Very, very interesting stuff, guys. So you can tell I'm a big fan of the World War One, but more of it conceptually, rather. Like I'm very anti-war. Anyway, so Rome introduced the concept of centralized city, unlike the Greek traditions, which had many important cities. And now that I think about Spain, they have Madrid, France, they have Paris, and then Italy, they have Rome. So it's the idea of the centralized city and how from there everything is governed. And Greeks were more theoretical, whereas Romans were more practical driven. I guess you could say practical driven, but I think Greeks were the most philosophical, the most theoretical of people from what I've seen. Like, at least Minogue makes it seem like that way. And however, Roman vocabulary is and was crucial in the development of Europe, since Latin was used until the 16th century as a language of Western Europe. So guys, I might learn Latin, but if you know Spanish, you know Portuguese, you know Italian, Latin is very close. If you know French, and I try reading Latin, it's a very nice language, and its influence it's felt today with Final Fantasy and all these video games, but also because even in the Holy Roman Empire, which was set in Germany, you still hear Latin, and it's a massively important language, just like French, when it comes to a history of Europe. So it's definitely worth checking it out. I might study Latin at some point, but at this point, I'm already like studying French, studying Italian, and German. That makes no sense for me to like expand further. However, it's a really nice language. Recommend you all to learn it. And it definitely is closely tied to the history of Western Europe. Romans viewed themselves as a people whose mission was to civilize the world. And this is right, just like in France, the idea of spreading civilization to other people. And I feel like with Spaniards, it's more spreading Catholicism, but they have similar ideas. Plebeians were allowed to have their own tribunal for representation in government. And it's interesting, Minogue says this, but it's interesting how, and I don't want to get into controversial stuff, but it seems Britain and maybe even the Dutch. So people don't say, oh, I'm always focused on Anglos. Like, they didn't follow the Roman model. They followed more of a mercantile approach where their main focus was on trade as opposed to trying to change the people there. And it's interesting. I prefer the Roman view because they're trying to integrate people. But anyway, let's continue. Plebeians were allowed to have their own tribunal for representation. So these were the working class people. Two things Roman excelled at was they were able to solve institutional crises. For instance, giving the plebeians representation and their ability for winning wars. Romans defeated the Greeks and the Carthaginians. And this is what Minogue tried to focus on. He said Greeks were mainly the creative people, theoretical, who were creating all this philosophy and politics, while Romans were more about expanding their civilization and expanding their worldview to integrate other peoples. And they were very good at solving crises when they said, like, let's give the working class people representation. According to Greek thinker Polybius, Rome had a mixture of monarchical, democratic, and aristocratic factions. Hence, it was very strong. So Greeks were masters at how to conceptualize a country, how ideas should be. And I find it fascinating now that they even thought about giving women roles and how a society might come up with that. So they were more about theoretical, and not because of the whole feminism, but how one can anticipate so far. To me, Greeks were scholars, most of all, while Romans seemed to be more about civilizing people, civilization, winning wars, sharing a culture, and also how to manage a country. And here Polybius said Rome had a mixture of monarchical, democratic, and aristocratic factions. So that's why they were so good, because they excelled at management, steadiness, firmness, and bribery of political officials was not allowed, a capital punishment. And also Romans were honest people, because and this is what Socrates said: in order for something to succeed, there has to be honest people. An enterprise or a project, even a conquest, there has to be a sense of honesty. And so bribing public officials was a crime, capital crime. Then also Romans stood by their oaths and their promises. Here it says that there was a more of a spiritual reason why they did, unlike the Greeks. But it's fascinating how, honestly, by reading this, I'm very impressed by Greek people. Like they're definitely some of the smartest out there. Then love for the country predominated, or love of oneself. Caesar believed that virtue was the first condition for freedom. Alright guys, I'll be back 1 minute. We'll continue. Guys, let's just continue. I'm back. So, briefly, Caesar believed that freedom needed a condition for Romans to rule their country and be efficient. They needed to love their country more than themselves. And he was critical of the idea of narcissism, of loving oneself. I'm just going to use it like that. It's an easy word to use, but let's continue. What I've learned: people in the Middle Ages believed that they were following up where Rome left off. The concept of the papal state was born from the ashes of Rome. Rome was founded in 753 BC by Romulus. It was ruled by kings until 509 BC. Rome went from a republic ruled by Caesar, who was assassinated in 44 BC. Then the Octavian, that was Caesar's relative, ascended as the ruler and ruled, and he became an emperor of Rome. And then it's very interesting, they talk about authority. So the Senate yielded authority. It might be that this authority came from Roman ancestors and might be connected with the idea that Romans viewed their state as one big family. So honestly, Minogue talks about the concept of authority, and he started breaking it down, and I don't think it's that straightforward as I'm explaining it here, because I'm still figuring out, still wrestling with these ideas. But he said that the Senate had this authority, like people perceived it that way, that the Senate has power, so we better follow. And then the Senate just gave their ideas. And auctoritas, this is a Latin phrase. A more complex concept is more than advice, but less of a command. More than the Senate had authority and people follow this authority. So when someone gives you advice, you can choose to follow or ignore it. When someone gives you a command, it's forceful. They're bossing you around. They're telling you do it. Well, when someone tells you something for authority, they are telling you you have to do it, but they're not forcing you. You're following it because you sense that they have power. They have this respect that they have created. Maybe this cloud, and to use a modern term, and you're just following that. And it might be connected with the idea of parents, how kids just obey their parents because they have authority, and how this relates back to viewing the state as a family. But anyway, it's a much more complex concept, but I'm trying to simplify it here. So res publica, public business. So then I learned a few vocabulary phrases and words. So the Greek terms policy, politics, they are from the police, politics, and policy. They all come from Greek. Well, Roman terms for civilization, citizen, and civilization. Civility, citizen, and civilization. So, like I said, guys, Greeks brought the ideas, the theories, while Romans brought the implementation, and what it will be, how in practice would some of these ideas were applied. And bewitched, because I've always really liked that word, influential. And then scaffolds, and it's ironic because andamios, for those of you guys who follow my Spanish content, nice connection there. Andamios is referred in the Historia de Cronen by the main character, that he went to a building and they have the andamios there, and here they said that scaffolds, they're using it as a structure, and the Roman Constitution is used as a structure that they built from that, and how it's still intact. So Rex Sancrorum, priesthood, he's saying that religious officials had power in Rome. Auspicia, the symbols and instruments to rule. Feodus, treaty. Plebeians were commoners. Patricians were fathers and rulers. And this is really important, guys, because they say, so there's like a working class, which are the plebeians. Honestly, I might be spelling that wrong, but like, for the sake, let's just continue of the video. And patricians are the fathers and rulers. And potentia is a physical power. Potestas is a legal right and power in political office. Autoritas is authority, the power to influence. So to connect it in a modern sense, you could say that modern influencers have this authority. People will follow them. Junction is intersection, author, this initiator of something, and we're connecting the idea of Romulus. He was the initiator of Rome, and then now how we use that word is for reading. So what questions do I have left? So what is the Holy Roman Empire, and why is it called Roman? And the Holy Roman Empire was the empire that ruled Germany, possibly Austria, possibly the Netherlands, so I wouldn't say confirm it, but it's interesting that they're all Germanic people and they speak German, but the elite speaks Latin. So that's very interesting, how Latin is the language which joins Europe. And what was the imperium? It seems to be the power of the state to do what's best for the state. So at the end of the chapter, Minogue starts exploring the concept of imperium. I think it's much more complex, but it seems to be the power of the state to say, okay, this is what we need to do. Alright guys, so like, comment, subscribe, thanks a lot, and see you in the next video.